Okay guys, we are back delivering another video on Space Marines. Obviously we've been trying to do a little bit more in-depth videos for you guys. We've already done a Blood Angel and we've done an Ultramarine, and we've basically done each one of those videos based on 3 different ways to paint them. Like the most basic, just some contrast and a few details, just to call them painted and get them on the tabletop. And then if you want to push them a little bit further, get them to a nice tabletop standard. And then there's Tabletop Plus, where we go the extra step again, where we add in kind of edge highlights and painting in eye lenses and all that kind of jazz. So obviously each one of these leads on from the previous one. So if you wanted to get an army painted really fast, you could do step 1. You could come back to it in 6 months time and do step 2 on the whole army if you want to. And if in a couple of years time you decide, you know what, I want to make this army look really sharp, then you can go to step 3. They all lead on from each other. So it's the perfect way to get your Space Marines painted up. So I thought about time I added on the next Space Marine to this list. And this one we're going to tackle is the Dark Angel. Dark Angel is always one that I've struggled with personally because it relies so heavily on clean and vibrant edge highlights. If you do not edge highlight a Dark Angel, it doesn't very much look like a Dark Angel. So yeah, let's see if we can figure out how to make that work in this video. Before I get into it though, a huge thank you to everyone there that continues to support all the channels by liking, commenting and subscribing. That's super important, so please do that. And anyone out there who goes the extra mile supports over on Patreon, you guys keep the lights on, the cameras rolling, so thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. If you want to get involved with Patreon, it is linked down below. There's a whole bunch of reasons to get involved. You get extra videos, access to a podcast, access to a private Discord server, and we do monthly giveaways. Every month we give away a Spearhead or Combat Patrol box of your choice. So if you win, you just message me and say, I really want to start Space Wolves. Can I get a Space Wolves Combat Patrol box? And I go, absolutely. And I send it straight to your front door. So if you want a chance of winning one of those box sets, all you need to do is be signed up to Patreon at any tier. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in and start working on this Dark Angel. Okay, so this is the bust that we've previously used for all the other videos and the one that I'm going to continue to use for all the videos for Space Marines moving forward. It's a very simple design. It's got a nice embossed shoulder pad. I sprayed it black and then sprayed it gray sear, and then I got stuck into painting. So for the kind of first layer of painting, as in the first stage, where if you just needed to get these army painted and on the tabletop as quickly as possible, as you have an event or in a tournament in a couple of days or in a week or two, then this is the stage that you would take it to. You start with Dark Angel's green contrast and you apply this as smooth as possible to the entire armor. Now, I will say that as a caveat. I've never been able to get Dark Angel's green contrast to be particularly smooth or flat or unblemished on any surface. It's a really funny contrast that does not like to agree with being painted onto flat surfaces like I can get with a Black Templar or with a Blood Angel's red or anything like that. So one of the things I will say is this first level of painting is not something that I would ever personally leave a model to. I don't think it looks particularly good, but like I said, if you're in a bind and you need to get models painted, so you're not going to lose points at a tournament and you have a small amount of time, you can do this and then obviously push it to the next stage before the next event and have it looking nice and sharp and crisp. So obviously we use Black Templar contrast for any of the soft seal sections in between armor panels. We threw a skeleton horde contrast over the chest emblem and his shoulder trim. We're going to throw wildwood over pouches and stuff. So obviously he's got grenade pouches, his holster, and some clip pouches are obviously on the Marine as well. So a very quick base coat of wildwood is used for those. And then some lead belcher for any of the silver sections. So you can see the holster of the pistol, and then some extra bits on his power pack is done in silver as well. The only other thing I would like to do is I would like to find a 3D sculpt of a bolt rifle without a hand attached to it, just the whole thing, that I could glue to the plinth bit on the bottom and paint it up when it's different. So for instance, the Dark Angel's, you know, supposed to have a red bolter casing. So I'd love to be able to show that off in these videos, but obviously he's not holding one, so it's a bit of a pain. So this is how he currently looks. I know it does not look fantastic, but like I said, it is fully painted. It is semi-neat and tidy, and you could put on a tabletop and it would be okay. But let's push it to step 2, which I think looks a hell of a lot nicer, a lot tidier. And it's something you could leave your army, a stage you could leave your army at forever if you wanted to, if you weren't so keen on the idea of edge highlighting, that's okay. So we jump to Caliban green and then we base coat in the armor with that. Now, we're layering in the armor, so we're not base coating. I'm leaving the darkness in between all the panels and in all the nooks and crannies left behind by the Dark Angel green contrast alone. I'm making sure not to fill those in. This will help define the armor panels and break it all apart and give it that nice kind of neat and pristine look. Now, once again, another caveat. The thing is, if you do enjoy Dark Angels are your thing. I love them. That's the chapter that I want to paint forever, but I don't like edge highlighting. I feel like you're going to struggle a little bit to make them really look like Dark Angels, because there is no other Space Marine chapter that leans so heavily on the edge highlight to make the armor look like it's supposed to than Dark Angels. It is an insane transformation from the flat green of the Caliban green paint to the end where you've got all those stages of edge highlighting done. So like I said, I've done a couple of videos on simple Dark Angels before. They turned out looking nice, but they did always feel like they were missing something, and that was the edge highlight. Whereas I've done Blood Angels and Ultramarines videos before without edge highlighting, and they looked fine. They were very passable. You obviously will see it with transformation here when I go into all those edge highlighting steps and tidy it up for you. But yeah, continuing the Dark Angels green step, or the Caliban green step, sorry. Like I said, around those sections, the flatness of that shoulder pad, making sure to get rid of those brush strokes that we got with the contrast green paint, and tidying those up as much as possible. This will obviously leave the green looking a lot, like I said, neater and tidier, a lot nicer, which means you can jump to other details like the bone sections, like your shafty bone, and layer that in. Obviously going in, taking my time and doing each individual kind of feather on the wings with a little highlight from that. The little skull in the center. And obviously I'm going a little bit stylized with the tilt shield. We've gone like quartered black and green in the quarters, and then the opposite quarters are just the bone color to match in with the armor. I literally just saw it online as I was painting, so I decided to copy it. I think it looks really nice. Add a little bit more detail to the model. And as you can see, the dark green and the bright bone really do complement each other a massive amount. On all the other examples of this bust that I painted that shoulder guard in gold. That's just this big, beautiful stylized thing. And originally when I started painting the Dark Angel, that's what I was planning on doing. I was going to give him a bone chest and then a gold shoulder trim. I decided to go in with the bone on that as well. I'm very happy that I decided to do that, because I think it's after adding an awful lot to the model. And then of course, in with Catachan Flesh is my preferred color to layer up Wildwood with. Gives it that nice kind of rich brown leathery color. Once again, it's a very quick and easy layer job. We can add some edge highlights to it later on if you so choose. But for now, those pouches will blend into the background of the model where they belong, but look nice and painted and neat and tidy. And as you can see, the model is looking a hell of a lot neater and tidier than it was previously. This is kind of the end of the kind of second stage where you got it to a nice tabletop standard. The models, like I said, will look nice and neat. You can obviously put them on some nice vibrant bases. You can add some weathering pigment to it if you want to add a little bit of a punch of color. That's something you can do to these models to make them pop. But like I said, if you want to challenge yourself and push it to level 3, which is kind of like that tabletop plus, where you add in the edge highlights, you need to have a fine pointed brush, a little bit of patience, and then we'll get to work. Step 1 is Warpstone Glow, and we're going pretty much around all the edges of this model, all the armor sections with Warpstone Glow. I went around with this in almost 2 coats because the first coat was quite thin. I had to water it down a little bit too much. Then I went in with a little bit more of a concentrated coat. And like I said, defined that armor as much as possible. Something to remember about edge highlighting is it doesn't need to be as neat and tidy as you think it does. If you start edge highlighting and you notice that first line you put on the model isn't exactly arrow straight, that's okay. Continue working around the entire model. By the time you get to the end, it will sell the effect of nicely edge highlighted, even if some of the lines aren't perfectly straight. If you pay attention to some other kind of painting examples online of other people doing it, you will notice the same thing. If you zoom in drastically on any one section of model, it doesn't look crazily neat, but it works. And as you can see, it does work. It's after defining the armor a hell of a lot more than it did like 2 seconds ago. The next step is Warpstone Glow, which is the previous color, mixed in with Moot Green, about 50-50. And whereas with the last edge highlighted, it was basically 100% of the edges got coated with this. With this step, we're going to drop it down to maybe kind of 80% of it. We're going to leave the kind of deepest areas nice and dark, but any of the kind of sharper points and corners, we're going to hit with that color and then pull it out a fair amount from each of those corners as well, which will then add that really nice definition to the armor. Like I said, you just got to be patient. You got to take your time. You got to be a little bit neat and tidy, and you will eventually sell this as a really, really nice effect and very transmorphative. The words you changed it to look very Dark Angel-y. I don't know what that word is or why I can't say it. Put it in the comments below if you knew what I was trying to say there, because I sure as hell don't. And one of the things that I have found is that I actually quite enjoy edge highlighting, which I know is a sin to say, but like if you're not in a rush, it's very enjoyable because it does do so much kind of amazing work for the model and piece, and it always kind of elevates it to the next level. So the next step is moot green, pure moot green. And this, I would say we're putting on maybe 15% of the model. And once again, we're just hitting those sharp corners and just going a little bit further or a little bit less out than the previous steps. And once again, it's just going to make the whole thing pop. And then there's even one more step again. I know we're edge highlighting on edge highlighting on edge highlighting. It's crazy, and that's just kind of how it works. But we actually then go to Screaming Skull, or use Sharp Debone, just a nice bone color. And we add another layer of edge highlighting, but this is just on the very kind of sharpest corner sections. It's something that I would have never considered going in with bone as the last edge highlight. Like, never would have thought about it. But when you follow examples online, you learn these little tricks. Suddenly it does unbelievable things to the look of the armor and makes it look like you put so much effort in when realistically it's not. It's just little corner sections done with a tiny bit of Sharp Debone. And I think you can all agree that this stage on paper shouldn't do what it does. But in reality, when you're looking at it, it does make a huge difference to the green armor. And it looks really, really nice. So I was really excited by this. I, in fact, have even pulled out an older Dark Angel model that I have painted up. And obviously, I've never done any edge highlighting on it, and I feel like it looks super flat. I'm going to go away now, have a little bit of fun, practice this technique again, and see if I can level up that Dark Angel miniature to a stage that I'm actually super proud of using these techniques. So, yeah. Okay, time to go to Screaming Skull, and this is where we're going to add the next layer and the final layer of edge highlighting to all the other bone sections of the model. So obviously the Aquila across its chest, the skulled wing thing across its chest, and then obviously the Aquila on his shoulder pad will get done with that Screaming Skull as well. And obviously the little quarters inside that tilt shield, we'll get a little touch of it around the edges to make it kind of pop and look really awesome. Now, normally I do skip the next steps, which is the eye lenses, because, you know, it's like 4 steps and it can slow me down a lot in videos. But I decided to keep them in for you guys, just to see how I do them. So obviously I paint the lenses in with black first, and then I go through 3 reds: Mephiston, Evil Sons, and Wild Rider, which is when I'm doing red lenses. And basically it's just a little kind of almost like a teardrop shape inside the eye lenses that just gets smaller and smaller with each stage of paint. So when it goes to Evil Sons, we're now painting inside the Evil Sons, or the Mephiston red. And then when we get to the Wild Rider section, that's going to be inside the Evil Sun Scarlet section. And as you can see, it doesn't take long at all. It's just almost like little single brush strokes inside the lenses. Wild Rider, very tiny sections. And then obviously we finish it off with a little dot of white, just to represent the kind of reflective glare that you can get from kind of the sun on the lenses. And that just really nicely sells the effect of the Dark Angel. And as you can see, we really are coming into the home stretch now. The model is really starting to come together. I'm really pleased with it. Like I said, I've always felt like, you know, I've painted Ultramarines before and I thought they were fine. And I did one of these videos and I was like, I did a much better job. Blood Angels, I thought I did a good job before. Did one of them for this. Thought I did amazing. I thought it looks really, really good. The Dark Angels before, I never thought I did a particularly good job. Whereas with this, I look at this and I'm proud of myself. I think it sells itself as a Dark Angel. It looks really cool, neat and tidy. And like I said, making the video has inspired me to move forward with one of my older Dark Angels models and push myself with it again. So that's got to be a good result for me. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Remember that I'm going through this series to help people in the new editions who want to paint Space Marines. So if you have any other chapters that you want to specifically see, don't hesitate, share them in the comments below. I will also share with you some of the other videos that I have done. One of these isn't a video yet, I just needed to do it personally, but I have done, of course, the Dark Angel, Blood Angel, Ultramarine, and I did an Imperial Fist bust, and they all look pretty nice. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. I'll see you in the next one.